And it looks like we also have the witness. Is that correct? Okay, then let's go ahead and go on the record. Going on the record at this time, Ms. Glick, you may call your next witness.
Christy Brown.
All right, Ms. Brown, my name is Judge Amy Clark Meachum. We are having a bench trial over a custody matter. Ms. Glick represents Mr. Weed and Ms. Weed represents herself. Both sides will probably be asking you some questions, but we'll start with Ms. Glick.
Ms. Brown, what do you do for a living?
I am the assistant principal here at Sycamore Springs Elementary.
And how long have you been assistant principal?
This is my second year here in this building. He joined us at Sycamore last year as a pre-K student towards the end of the year. So I believe it was second semester, a couple months left of school.
And have you interacted with an individual level?
Yes.
Is it typical that you would interact with a specific student?
Is it typical? It varies depending on behaviors. There are many students here at Sycamore that I have not interacted with. I usually deal with students who have behaviors or other needs, more intervention, and I step in and help.
And why have you met with Case individually?
Case was brought to my attention at the end of last year when the school had to perform a threat assessment when Case made a threat towards the teacher and some other students in the pre-K classroom. So that's how I began to get to know him.
And tell me about that threat assessment that was conducted. Were you a part of those discussions?
Yes. He had made a threat towards another student when a student scratched him and it caused him to see blood on his arm. And so he really overreacted and was angry. He told that when the teacher was trying to calm him down, he said that he was going to kill her and the other students in the class. So she removed him and was trying to de-escalate him in the hallway while a paraprofessional was in the room with the other students. The teacher brought it to our attention that this had happened. And so then we went ahead and performed a threat screen with the counselor who is not with us any longer. Her name was Casey Baker. And so and I did call Miss Weed at the time, Carrie Weed, his mom, to fill her in on the threat assessment that we were doing. She did come to the school at the time, and she witnessed in my office. Case escalated and continued to say that he wanted to kill people and he was going to kill them with knives and guns. And Carrie kept asking him to, letting him know that that's not safe and he shouldn't be talking like that, and kept reiterating appropriate behaviors, but he still continued to just voice what he wanted to do to other students and to the teacher.
And when was that threat assessment or that threat screening done?
I am not sure the exact date. I want to say it was in May.
So last school year?
Yes, last school year was the first one that initiated a threat assessment, and then it moved into this year. We performed another threat assessment this year as well.
Tell me about the threat assessment that was done this year.
This year, we did a threat assessment because Case again was actually getting physical with students. He had laid hands on another student in the library and choked another student, one who is medically fragile, and began choking him. And the teacher intervened, the librarian intervened, and brought Case aside. And then once she let go of Case, and she wasn't holding on to Case, she was just kind of like moving him off to the side, and he got around her and started choking another student. So then the paraprofessional in the library intervened as well. And so then he was brought to my office. He was super escalated, upset. He just wanted to hurt kids who couldn't defend themselves. Because I kept asking him why he wanted to hurt this medically fragile student. And he said, because he can't protect himself. After some talking with him, and we had our counselor on deck too, visiting with him, I thought I'd bring him down to the gym because that's where he has electives. And so when I walked him down there, I stayed in the gym with him, and all the little kindergarten students were sitting in a big circle, and there were lots of adults spread out around. They were going to play a game. And I said to Case, "Oh, you can sit right here in this spot." And a little girl opened up her arms and goes, "Case, come sit by me." And he just walked up to her and just kicked her with his flat foot in her chest and she fell backwards. So right then we jumped in, and so I took him to my office, and he was still really angry and just wants to hurt people. So that is why we did that threat assessment at that time.
And did you call both parents after that threat assessment?
I believe, if I remember right, I did call Carrie, and I let Carrie know that this was going on. I can't remember if it was the exact day, that same day. I believe it was, because there were some days in there where I had to send him home, and I excused him from the school because I can't suspend a student at that age. But I did need to send him home and excuse him in order to put together a threat assessment team, which consists of many different people so that they can be all in the same room and there's no bias. And we just kind of tell the story and we decide what level of threat he's at. And so I did let Carrie know. She did come and get him. He was excused so that I could perform the threat assessment the next day with all the team members, including some district office staff and also the school resource officer. I also asked Carrie at that time if he had access to weapons and those type of questions and how he's been acting at home. And she did say that he has been acting out at home, and she's been seeing that he's been angry towards his sister quite a bit, but she didn't understand why.
And have you spoken to Mr. Weed?
I have spoken to Mr. Weed. There was an incident when I had to call him. I've tried to call him several times just to kind of keep both parents in the loop. Many times that I've tried to call, I would get a voicemail and I would leave a real vague message because I didn't know if it was his voicemail. Come to find out, there was the wrong number that was in Skyward for parent contact. And a counselor from the middle school side ended up updating the Mr. Weed's phone contact. And so there was a day that I was waiting for Miss Weed to come to the school because I was having a lot of problems with Case and his behavior and him being very physical. And Carrie had on the phone, Carrie told me that she was going through some things because I was explaining to her what Case was telling me on the phone. And she said, I would rather come talk to you in person, but I'm not well. And I asked her a little bit more about that. She never showed up. I waited for 2 hours with some district folks to visit with Carrie. And so she didn't show up. So I thought, well, I'll just try this dad's phone number. And I got a hold of him and I was really surprised because I was with the district's mental health counselor, and he answered and I informed him of what was going on. And he immediately came over to the school. And I believe he lives far away. I'm not real familiar with Texas, but I believe it's like a 45-minute drive. And he was here within the hour to discuss the issues with Case. In the meantime, I was really worried about Carrie. And so I had sent a school resource officer and we called in for a welfare check to find out where she was because I was waiting for her to come to the school. And then that's when the school resource officer reported back to me that she was at home and she was okay. And she knew that he was at school and in good hands.
Are you aware of Case's attendance records?
Yes.
And do you know about how many absences had for the school year at Sycamore?
I don't know exact how many. I do know that when he came
Your Honor, may I share my screen?
I just gave you permission.
Wonderful.
It is for this year.
Your Honor, I'm showing what's been previously admitted as Petitioner's Exhibit 5. And Ms. Brown, do you know, looking at this record, how many absences of the school year?
Yeah, it looks like 23.
And do you know about how many tardies?
It says 8.
Does that sound right to you?
Yes.
And what was your understanding of who Case was primarily living with during that time?
During that time, he was with mom when he first enrolled, or when he came back to school at the beginning of this year, enrolled in kinder. Because I had not closed out the threat assessment from last year, he was on my radar the very first day of school. And so I wanted to just, wait and embrace him and kind of get him set up for success. He did not show up the first day of school. When he did, I'm not sure exactly what day he did show up. I believe it would be on that attendance record. But when he did, then the teachers and staff members notified me, and I pulled Case in, and we had a great talk. I talked with Carrie as well. We discussed attendance and how school starts at 7:45. And we'd like for him to be here because we take attendance at 8:45. And if he is not here at 8:45, even if he gets here at 9, he's still marked absent, and we do not, he's not accounted for at that time of when we take attendance. So Carrie, he never, ever, I think, I don't know if there was even a time he came on time with Carrie when he was with her. Carrie told me that it was really hard to get him to school in the mornings because it's hard to get him up and wake him up as a kindergarten and get ready for school. And so she said that she would bring him in when she would bring her other daughter around that time.
Is it your opinion that Case's absences contributed at all to his behavior?
No. And mainly just because he is a kindergartner and he was a pre-care. It's not appropriate to just send kids home and suspend them and be punitive. It's really to try to wrap our arms around the student and the families and provide supports to help grow that child to become lifelong learners. And so I don't believe, the school, no, he wasn't, he was absent because he wasn't here on time when he was with mom, or he would just stay home and not come to school when he was with mom.
And do you think, though, that his absence from school caused him to react at school?
I don't know. I don't know. When he would talk to me, he would be very concerned about his mom and where he was living at that time. That's when behaviors really started to spike, was when he kept saying that his mom was going to lose his house, and he loves his mom and he wants to be with his mom, but his mom has his bed, but he has to go live with his dad. Or no, he said, I want to live with my mom because my mom has my school supplies, but I want to live with my dad because my dad has a bed, because my mom won't have a house very much longer. So that's when I had called Carrie to come over and let's talk, because I would be able to provide some supports as far as if she's losing her housing. I would be willing to pitch in money for a hotel or whatever she might need, so that it would be stable for Case. And then that's when she never showed up. But as far as his behaviors, I believe that, when kids have consistency and routines in their life, they do tend to, with that structure, behave better because they know what to expect. And I believe with Case, there was so many unexpected events going on in his life that was a worry for him. Plus, when he'd come to school late. And so kids would already be in on their routine and doing what they're doing. And so the moment Case would go into the classroom, things would escalate because he would just be, it would just be off for him.
And did you meet with Mr. Weed to discuss a behavioral plan for Case?
Yes.
And did you make any recommendations to Mr. Weed?
Earlier, before Mr. Weed came into the picture, I had made the team. And what I mean by team, we've just had so many people on deck to help students. We really were pushing for a full individualized evaluation on Case so that we could provide behavioral supports for him. And so I had spoke with Carrie at the beginning of the year when his behaviors were starting to spike about how if we had this evaluation completed, we have other supports in the building that can come and offer resources and support for him. I had everything ready to go. And then I kept asking Carrie for her information to turn in order to get the ball rolling. And she ended up bringing it to school and asked if we could hold off, that she really did not want him to be tested, mainly because she didn't want him to be labeled. And so I was trying to explain to her the whole process and how it's not labeling. It's really just providing supports for students. And she did not turn in that paperwork. She had said she wanted to hold on to it and wait. So my hands were tied as far as providing him specialized supports in the building. And then when Mr. Case came in, we explained to Mr. Case about kind of where we're at. and then he ended up supplying the sign forms.
And to your knowledge, did Mr. Weed ever come and sit in classes with Case?
Yes. We've had there's times where we have escalated behaviors with students, and we are kind of baffled on how to respond and handle. We will invite the parent in to just come observe, so that we can stand back and observe how the parent interacts with the child. So it's like a partnership, like a marriage. And so I wanted to see how Mr. Weed interacted with Case. And so, yeah, he took the time. He was really willing to bend over backwards to help this young boy and just provide support. So he was all in.
Did you ever make a recommendation to Mr. Weed that Case should live closer or go to school closer to where Dad lives?
No. In fact, Case was he was zoned for a different school when he enrolled again, when Carrie enrolled him for this year. He was zoned for where Carrie was living for Cypress Elementary. And I had went to bat for Case to come here, so that just because we know him, it would be just a seamless transition. He wouldn't have to get to know other teachers. We already knew him, and he knew us. So I had worked with the district to allow for him to go to school here. And also it would be easier for Carrie, because Carrie was transporting her other daughter here, and we're a compound school. So we have a middle school on our other side. So I just wanted to try to make it as convenient for her as possible. I would love to have Case here and continue to provide supports. But when talking with Case and talking with Mr. Weed and the situation, it seemed like he was driving a lot to get Case here to school, and then also picking him up. And even Case said it's just a long drive. So I just felt really bad for a little 5-year-old to have to be in the car for that long. But Mr. Weed did a great job getting him here to school and picking him up.
I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Right, Ms. Weed, if you have questions.
I do. Hi, Christy. How are you today?
Hi, Carrie. Good.
Good. So I guess I would like to ask about the first time that we had any type of interaction was obviously, like, as you mentioned, with Case's first behavioral outburst. Can you kind of expand upon our conversation between yourself, myself, Casey Baker, and Case, and some of kind of the background as to where that all kind of stemmed from?
From, if I could recall right, when I called you, you came in, you were super helpful, gave us a lot of a background information about how you and your husband were split up, and Case's dad is not with you in the picture. I didn't have a lot of paperwork, and I know we've asked several times for documentation to be able to interact with whomever, with you or with Mr. Weed. I thought the interaction went great. I felt like you were a team player. You were really trying to do what's best for Case, and loved on him, and he loves you. And yeah, I just felt like it was a good partnership.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So also, when in regards to Case's statements to you about his father, what did you perceive his relationship to be with his father based upon his statements?
Based on his statements of a 5-year-old, I believe, yeah, to me, it seemed like he was a mama's boy, spent a lot of time with mama, loved his mom. I felt like he didn't know his dad, so that when his dad was mentioned, he would be afraid, and he would cry and say, and like start to hyperventilate. I don't want to see my dad. And so I didn't know who he was at the time. And then when I met him and watched the interaction, it was, I don't know the word, it was endearing, I guess I should say, to see that interaction as well, because it was really evident that both of you really care for that boy.
And I guess, so another question that I have is the safety factor of a conversation that we had after this came up with a different witness, but you were a witness to cases violence, and then a conversation that we had about maybe some potential negligence or putting him in a very dangerous situation that can be shared. Can you expand upon that?
Yeah, so there was a time when Case and I were visiting. We spent a lot of time together in the office, and he had stated that his dad tried to sell him at a convenience store. And so I was like, what? Try to sell you? Tell me more. And so he proceeded to say that he was at the convenience store with his dad and his sister, and his dad left him there or tried to sell him for $100. And the guy at the cashier stand, who was working behind the cashier stand, said, was laughing, and he just started crying and ran into the car because he was scared. He didn't want to be sold. I did end up making a report on that, and I had our school resource officer look into these allegations. And because then also I think that you came in and I told you about all that, and you had said that Case's dad had left him at the convenience store. I don't remember if I think that there was like two different stories, right? Like left him at the convenience store, and so then the cops had to be called. The convenience store cops called to get someone to pick up Case. I did look deeper into that, and I asked our school resource officer to look into that situation. He did go to the police department from that state, and they said that there was no call made, that there was no evidence of a phone call being made from a convenience store with Case or with Case's father. So we deemed that as like Case was just being a 5-year-old and making up stories and that's how we kind of left it at that.
Understood. Well, I appreciate that y'all did your due diligence and looked into it.
Yeah.
So another, you talked about providing resources based upon the McKinney-Vento and some other school resources.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of some of those resources was, can you kind of expand upon maybe like the licensed mental health care professional and how she kind of came into play with Case and continued to kind of come into play over the summer and then as this school year as well?
Yeah, our school, this district provides some great resources for students and staff, and one of them is the licensed mental health. And so this particular person really took Case under her wing. A lot of us really did invest a lot of time, and also wanted to bring, I believe they set up some appointments with you to take you in to get some things done. And I know she had several gas cards to fill up your tank and just help you with that, because I know you've struggled with filling up your tank and not having gas. So she had all those ready, but I don't think that those appointments ever happened. And I don't know for whatever reason. But I do know that a lot of supports were put in place to help Case and to help you.
Did the school resource officer ever bring to your attention some of my reports in the parking lot as to the vehicle outside of fuel issues and like vehicle programming and like any of those things, like through any of our exchanges? Did he ever mention any of that? Any video surveillance that you guys may have witnessed in the parking lot?
Not video surveillance. There have been a couple times that you would leave and go out into the parking lot, and you would be in the parking lot for quite some time. And because our administrative offices are right here, we can kind of see what's going on. We noticed one time you sitting in your car for quite a long time, and then officers showed up and talked with you for a while. And then they came in and we asked if everything was okay. And they asked us to do a CPS report because they felt like you were not in a good headspace. You kept trying to give them your phone and saying you were hearing voices and noises. So my question to the SRO at the time was, is it safe for Case to go home with Carrie? We want to make sure that he's safe. And he said, at this time, we don't feel like there's any indication that he's not safe. So go ahead and just make the CPS report, and then they'll like intervene if they don't want to open the case. Then there was another time where we saw you out there for a really long time, and then an officer went to the back parking lot and talked with you. I don't even remember what that was about. I don't remember. I just know that you sat in the parking lot for quite some time, and you did tell me that you do have some like frequency things that go on sometimes that kind of get in the way of impair your thinking, your concentration, but never to the point where it was like, I don't think case is not safe to go home with you. And mainly because the officers have came in and they've said, we heard from Carrie again, or because then there were times when case was supposed to be at school and he wasn't. So then I'm concerned. And so I would ask the SRO, is there anything going on with Carrie Weed in case, because case is not at school, and mainly because we would monitor for your daughter as well, if she's at school. And they would tell me that there were a couple times that they've had to that they got a call from you that you ran out of gas on the side of the road, and so they would come and they fill your tank and get you to where you needed to go.
Yes, that vehicle sometimes doesn't always read the tank.
Yep.
The fuel alert system properly. But so circling back to the frequency and the audio visual, like audio kind of communication that I had shared with you, was there any type of device or anything that was offered by you or by the school district to me to maybe assist with any of that, with the devices, my cell phone or anything, my vehicle, whatever you?
Not a device. I know that when we were here talking in my office, I had given out little gifts to all of my paraprofessionals, and I happened to have a little box with one of those headbands that you can Bluetooth in, and like you can wear it to sleep, and you can Bluetooth it with your phone. And you were looking at it, I'm like, oh, you can have it. And so you're like, oh, can I go? Absolutely. I had bought several of them, and I was already done giving gifts. And you had said, I said, oh, I totally am trying. I got one for myself because my husband snores, and I was hoping to do some white noise because I have a little grandbaby at home and we have white noise going on. So I remember us interacting about that, and you took that and said, yeah, I'm going to try to, Bluetooth it in and do some white noise. But as far as any other device.
Yes, that's exactly what I was referring
to. Okay.
And I'm so grateful for that. Did you happen to have any type of serial numbers or anything that you could maybe share, or that you were monitoring yourself or at the school district level for those gifts or for those devices?
No.
Okay.
Mainly because I buy that with my own personal money. My husband and I put it in a little fund that we give back to the school. And so I just bought a bunch of different things off Amazon. And there was 5 of those that I bought. And I don't have time to monitor stuff like that. So I don't know.
Do you have any knowledge as to how any applications or anything that that device specifically has an association or a capability to sync or link to through the internet?
Not that I know of.
No.
But I'm not tech savvy, and so I don't know. And I know I had bought 5 of them, and 4 of the other paraprofessionals had taken, because I had that one left, and they never said anything either. So
the transparency app, you've never had any, have you ever used or heard of the transparency app? Because I believed I had seen it on your computer screen pulled up one day. No?
A transparency app?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all that you've done, and I appreciate you answering my questions. And that's really all that I have for you at this moment. Let me just check one. Oh, one more thing. Clarification, circling back on the relevance to cases tardy and absences. So was it my understanding that you were stating that his tardy and absences are a correlation or a direct correlation to his violence? Is that what I was?
No, I believe his absences, unfortunately, were because you would not bring him in on time when school started, to the point where I even said, let's get him transportation. And then that'll save, because you were still trying to find work, and it just seemed like as a single parent, you were working so hard to take care of a teenager and this little one. And so because of the McKinney-Vento, I said, we could provide transportation. So let's do that. And they can, so we set up this whole big system of where one driver, the district paid for one driver and one van specifically for Case to bring him to and from school, which you and I talked about how incredible that was. And then I said, so they can, they'll pick up Case in the mornings. And you said, oh, let's wait. Mainly because, and my heart went out to you because, yeah, he's just a baby. He's 5 and kindergartner. And it was like, oh, it's hard to let him go to school and let him go. So he would not come to school on time. Therefore, he was marked absent. So even if he did come to school, it still in our system would count him as absent, even though he may show up at 10 o'clock. It would, I guess, according to Texas law with attendance, he's automatically not accounted for if he doesn't get here when attendance is taken at 8:45.
Okay. So, yes, behaviorally, the mornings were difficult at times. I agree with that. Which kind of put us at a setback, but, beyond that,
You don't get to testify, Ms. Weed. Remember, you're asking questions. It's not the chance. You'll testify later, but you don't get to ask, you don't get to say your view and then ask a question. You're just asking questions. So ask a question.
yes, ma'am. Was there ever any communication that we had as to any type of programs at the school or outside of the school that you recall, or programming or anything like that that you recall us communicating about?
No, I try to think. I know with Mr. Weed, he had asked because he was traveling so far to pick up Case and drop him off. He had asked if there was some sort of after school program that Case could join so that, because he's coming here and then Case would get out at 3. And then I believe Kendall would not get out until 4:15. And so it just would be a big gap for him to wait around. He was the only one that had asked about the kids club, but I don't remember any other programs with you and I.
Okay, so maybe through Mrs. S or any of the other counselors or licensed mental health care professionals, no programming or requests about like what he is being exposed to at either the school or at the residence?
No, the only thing, because I was really curious. I remember visiting with you about how does he have the type of language that he has as a 5-year-old to such violence and the words that he uses. Most of the 5-year-olds don't talk the way he talks. And such a smart kid. And you did say he does watch a lot of YouTube. And he also told me he watches a lot of YouTube. And so that's the only program that I think that he's been exposed to of my knowledge that I know that he's been. But as far as like any help programs, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And you had testified to the concern or the interest in our residents in that status, and mentioned that I don't know that you mentioned it, but did you ever take a drive or take a special interest in where we were residing and where in the district that may have been? Can you speak to that?
I'm glad you asked. I moved here from Colorado 2 years ago. And so I came from a really low demographic Title I school, and my heart goes out to those people. And I think that's why I really just took an interest in you and to Case because it just seemed like you were trying so hard to be the best mom that you could be. And there was a day that week when you had said you were going to come to the school, and I waited for a couple hours. And then I've tried to call you throughout that week and you didn't answer. So I had requested from the district to do a home visit. And so I went with the Director of Safety and Security, Serena Cumberland, to your house. Your car was there, and we knocked on the door and we stayed for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes and waited. And I tried to call you several times and left messages and you didn't answer. So we left. So I did get to see the home that you were renting from, or VR, you said it was a VRBO that 2 employers were renting for you. And so that next day you did come to school, and I remember saying, oh, I went to your house. I tried to see you, see if you guys needed anything and if you were okay. So yeah, you are one of the 2 home visits that I've done since I've been at Sycamore.
Okay. And then I think this may be my last question, but I appreciate you having mentioned that you were concerned and cared in the pitch-in for a hotel. I don't recall that conversation when I went to the school district.
Objection, Your Honor, just form. I don't know. Seems like a narrative again.
It is. Ask a question. We need to finish up, Ms. Weed. One more question. But you can't say what you thought happened
Oh, those
and then
were-
ask a question. You can't do that.
Okay, so at the school district level, what resources were suggested to have been provided through the McKinney-Vento as it pertains to residency?
I'm not sure. I'm not real familiar with McKinney-Vento. I just know that they provide a lot of support, food bags. They do provide medical exams if needed. As far as homes, I'm not certain on how that works. But I do remember that day when I had told you about the incident and had needed you to come see me. You even told me you weren't well. And I said, what do you mean you're not well? And you said, I just am not well mentally. And I had said, would you like for me to call someone to come help you and get you? I can send an ambulance or I can send an SRO. And you informed me, no, I've had mental health assistance before. And I've been on medications and I've been on holds and they have not helped me. So I think that's what raised the big concern for me is I was just worried for your health and I was just worried about you.
Okay. I'm not certain the recollection on holds is correct. However, yes, that was likely somewhat of a conversation that we did have.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time and that is all I have.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have anything else, Ms. Glick?
No, I don't, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Brown, for your time here today. I'll also say thank you to your school for engaging with this family on such a, it really has been, I have been impressed by your school today and how much you tried to do to help this family and these children. So thank you for being good at your job and being good administrators. I think the parents and the kids all appreciate it, despite the acrimony we might have in this case. It was very impressive, the work that your school tried to do. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate
that. You're excused as a witness and you're free to go.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
The next witness, Ms. Glick.
She said
She's
she was
here. She's here.
Oh,
Just call
perfect.
her.
Wonderful.
Call her.
Yes, ma'am. I call Sandra Zimmerman.
And I am bringing her into the Zoom now.